It's the fight on the poster, the main event. Max Holloway taking on the Korean Zombie Sung Jung. As always, one half your hosting duo, Craig Allen. Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me to my left, to your right, he's got a haircut. It's at Matt Allen FNP. Some big time fights on this card, but none bigger than the main event. The former champion, he was interim. He unified it. He got things rolling. One of the best featherweights out there. It is Max Blessed Holloway, number one all time by a long shot in significant strikes landed in the UFC. And he's taking on a man who's going to be competing in his 10th straight main event in the Korean Zombie in Kallang, Singapore. So, Matt, a big-time fight between these two guys. And for the Korean Zombie, we haven't seen him in action since early last year when he took on Alexander Volkanovski, and it certainly wasn't his day. But on Sung Jung's best day, we're throwing hooks to close the distance. He's mixing in his wrestling against Dan Ige to get the title shot. For the Korean Zombie, even go back to his fight against Dennis Bermudez. He gets clocked by the first big overhand right that Bermudez lands.
Was that not one of the dirtiest uppercuts you've ever seen?
Yeah, to rally his way back into it, and he lands the big uppercut. Bermudez is down like a sack of potatoes, and that was off of a really long layoff due to mandatory military service for the Korean Zombie, who hadn't competed since he fought for the title against Jose Aldo. So for the Korean Zombie, he fights Bermudez. That's a performance of the night. He has a fight of the year against Yair Rodriguez, and we've kind of seen what's happened from there in losing to Rodriguez since then. Wins over Renato Moicano, win over Frankie Edgar, the loss against Brian Ortega, the win over Danny Ige. Korean Zombie hasn't taken an easy fight since he's been back, and it's been really, really awesome to see the return for him.
Oh, it has been. Like, the Korean Zombie, you don't go by the Korean Zombie without having an absurd amount of fanfare. When's the last time you heard anybody call him Sung Jung? Because it's been a hot minute. They even have on the broadcast Zombie under him, like, with his color shorts. That's how well known he is by that nickname and by that moniker.
People haven't been calling me the prop king of MMA for long. I wish it sticks.
I don't think anybody's calling me that.
They're not wearing a t-shirt of me. They're wearing Korean Zombie t-shirts.
This is my thing about the Korean Zombie, though. I was listening to a podcast about the upcoming NFL season, and they said something that really stood out to me, and it made me think about other teams in this light. It was, hey, I forget what team exactly, but they have more players that you know, but does it mean that they're better? Because having a big name and having that notoriety, it kind of depends on what stage of your career you're at, right? And for Sung Jung, I bring up Nomar Garcia-Parra earlier. I'm worried the Korean Zombie Shaquille O'Neal in a Celtics jersey. Now, he didn't play a lot of games with the Celtics. We did see one, and it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. Rondo's like trying to throw him alley-oops, and if it wasn't perfect, Shaq would just kind of let it go out of bounds and just accept the turnover. And for the Korean Zombie at 36 years old, there could have been a case to be made that he was past his prime when he was 32, just based on the amount of damage that he has taken and the amount of layoffs that he's had, because you bring up the initial one before the Bermudez fight. He tore his ACL after the Bermudez fight and had to take another extended layoff before going into that Yair Rodriguez matchup. I know he looked good against Yair, even though it was a losing effort. He was very close to winning that fight until one of the all-time great knockouts happened. But for the Korean Zombie in his last time out, he had nothing for Alexander Volkanovski. And I know, listen, Volkanovski may have beat Islam Makhachev. That's how good that guy is. But Max Holloway was at least able to stay consistent with him and have a few competitive fights. The third fight wasn't all that close, if we're being honest. But even though I think Max Holloway might not be in his prime anymore, he might not be the guy who fought Brian Ortega and put on one of the all-time great striking clinics, I still think he's closer to it. If he's on the same Shaq timeline, he's probably with the Miami Heat. You know, he could win a title if there's another guy who's a little bit better. I just don't think he's as far past as Sung Jung, because you bring it up. Max Holloway has never been knocked down throughout his UFC tenure. He has one of the all-time great chins. He's one of the most durable fighters we have ever seen. And I do think a lot of that comes down to his cardio and just his level of fitness overall. Holloway has great cardio, great chin, great output. I just don't know, outside of one big punch, how does Sung Jung go out there and win this fight convincingly?
Maybe he decides he wants to wrestle a little bit.
The problem is, though, he's got great grappling. I just don't know if the wrestling's at the level it has to be to go out there and take down Max Holloway over and over.
That's the thing for the Korean Zombie in this one, too. In past fights, he's trained at Korean Zombie MMA. He's trained at Fight Ready MMA for the last number of fights. He was getting ready there for the Volkanovski fight, so Champ Camp with Figueiredo and Cejudo, and the list goes on. And he used to train a little bit at the MMA lab as well. So when it comes down to this one, you look at his Instagram, I thought he had the nicest call out in the entire world.
He seems like a very pleasant man.
In April, he called out Max Holloway. He said, "You want the fight? Let's make the fight." So they did make the fight. But it seems like he's been training in Korea for this one. So I'll be interested to see if his regular striking coach, being Fight Ready's Eddie Cha, makes the trip over to Singapore and he is in the corner. But when you look at a fight like this, for Max Holloway, the kind of flip side of the coin is, look at the guys that he's been able to turn away while not beating Alexander Volkanovski. And since 2013, he loses to Conor McGregor, who was on a run. He loses up at lightweight against Dustin Poirier, and he loses 3 fights against Volkanovski. Other than that, they're all wins. He turns away Yair Rodriguez in one of the most insane fight of the nights that you're going to see.
That fight was that close.
He turned away Arnold Allen his last time out, and that fight wasn't all that close.
But this is what I mean. For Max Holloway, this is why I say I think he's a little bit past his prime. Prime him, I think, would have stopped Yair, and prime him, I think, would have stopped Arnold Allen. I do think these fights against contenders are getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer, because if he fought Yair tomorrow, I don't know who I'd pick. Like, honestly, that's how good I think Yair is. I know we got beat by Volkanovski, too. But I just think for Holloway, yes, he's still got the output. Yes, he still has a lot of high volume. I just don't know if it's at that Hall of Fame tier that it once was. Because you bring up the striking numbers. Max Holloway looks like Wilt Chamberlain when it comes to his significant strike numbers. That's how far ahead he is of the second place. But I still think it's turned down just like a little tick from his absolute prime.
You got to give it to the people. 3,122 significant strikes landed career for Max Holloway in the UFC. Number 2 all time, Angela Hill at 1,821. There's a big gap there. There's also a big gap for both of these guys career-wise in the UFC for what they throw per minute. For Max Holloway, 7.16 to 4.79 absorbed per minute, compared to Korean Zombie that has a negative strike differential, 3.97 to 4.37 absorbed. So it is very positive for Holloway. He's shown that positivity and at least the fact that he can go out there and throw those high numbers against Yair Rodriguez, primary striker, MMA math being what it is, and Max Holloway having the wins over Jose Aldo as well. But when you look at it for Holloway doing it against the young up-and-comer, the heavy hitter, Arnold Allen, and we saw what Arnold Allen was able to do when he fought Calvin Kattar, knee injury notwithstanding, but for Allen, he wasn't able to have that same success against Max Holloway. So when you look at a fight like this, Holloway is definitely not favored to win it. We threw this one out there.
Yes,
Sorry,
he is.
I said the opposite, and I meant to say it. No. Max Holloway is a giant favorite in the matchup. We threw it out there to you guys on the YouTube channel, and you guys always respond in the community tab. But Matt, almost 1,000 total votes from this morning, 90% going with Max Holloway. Black Panda saying, Zombie wins easily, mark my words. We've got, if Max is not minus 10,000, something's wrong. Eric is saying, why the UFC doing this to Zombie? Give him a favorable stylistic matchup and let the man retire. And I'll go with one more. Justin, this fight makes no sense whatsoever. Justin, there's a few of those on this card. When it does come down to this one, Matt, it pains me to say it.
Yeah,
really
everyone loves the Korean Zombie. Everybody who voted for Max Holloway kind of felt bad, right? Because they were like, well, if he wins, that means Sung Jung's got to lose, and nobody wants that.
We don't come at this from a fan perspective. We try and play it right down the line, respectable, so on and so forth. I bought the shirt years ago, so I figured I'd have it as the big reveal at the end. But I don't have the Korean Zombie in this fight. Unless he shows a new wrinkle. He showed a little bit of that wrestling, the volume, when he took on Dan Ige. He showed it earlier on in his career as well. Everybody remembers, and it's at the forefront of everybody's mind. He loses to Leonard Garcia in a wild fight in their first one. But in the second one, he gets the twister. So Korean Zombie does have that ground game. It's just not a package that we get to see very often. And maybe this is it to save a spot in the top half of this featherweight division. But for me, I think the striking, the volume, and the longevity of Holloway is going to play out in this one.
I've also got Max Holloway in this fight, but I got to be 100% honest. If he fought Josh Emmett, I think that'd be really interesting. I think there's names at the top of the featherweight division that could have competitive fights with Holloway. We saw that against Yair Rodriguez. That was a really close fight. There were people who genuinely thought Yair won that. Now, I don't agree with them, but still, it was that close of a fight that if you really want to have that argument, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you all that wholeheartedly. So I think for Max Holloway, he has all the skills to win this fight, but I think there is going to come a certain time. I know, what a prediction. Everybody loses, but I think there's going to be a certain time, probably sooner rather than later, where we will see one of these prospects making their way up the division actually dethrone the number one contender, because that's been the thing for Max Holloway. He's kind of been in that, remember when Colby Covington was just the number one contender for Usman for basically 3 straight years? That's what Holloway is for Volkanovski.
That man is Ilya Topuria, and he's coming. Matt, a big-time fight in this main event. Both of us going with Max Holloway to get the win. A lot of prospects on the card. A lot of stuff to look forward to. This card is also, don't forget, in Singapore. So it's a really early show on Saturday morning when the UFC decide to go live, and we'll have an abbreviated question mark kicks that most likely won't be 2 hours before the prelims, because the last time I checked, they start at 5 a.m. Eastern. So look out for a special edition of question mark kicks when that drops here on the channel. If you're not already subscribed, hit that button, toss a like on the way out, putting the shows together, some big time fights this week. You're not going to want to miss any of it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.